Hello, my name is Carl Robinson and I coordinate the Bachelor of Social Science Youth Work at Table Adelaide. What I want to talk about today is how to improve your essay structure. What I'm finding is that I'm seeing the same mistakes over and over and over again with people that just need to strengthen their academic voice. So the content of their essay might be okay and there might be some great points that they're making, but they're losing, in some cases, significant marks. Because they're not putting the effort in, or they simply just don't know how to strengthen that academic voice. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just below this video there's a link that you can click, and I'll ask you to click that now. And on that link it will give you just this e-magazine that you can follow along with me while I explain a couple of things. And I don't want this to go for long, so just make sure that you're keeping up to speed. Alright, the first one we're going to look at is the structure of your essay. Have you written an essay plan? See, essays can take a gigantically long time to write if you don't know what you're trying to say. So what I've put down here is just a brief essay structure to say what's my thesis statement, what topic sentences, and how do I write my introduction or conclusion. And so we need to understand firstly that your introduction is 10%, up to 10% of your assignment total, and your conclusion is up to 10%. In your introduction, you need to say what your essay is going to say. So anybody should be able to pick up your essay, read your introduction, and know exactly what your assignment is about. In your introduction, say, in this essay, I will, or in this essay, or this essay will demonstrate. Make sure in your introduction you say that. And then in your conclusion, just sum up what you've already said. The conclusion is not the place for new or more information. And then topic sentences. When you're writing out your essay, make sure at the start of every paragraph you give the one sentence that says what that paragraph is going to be about. So let's say that your assignment is on principles and practices of youth work, and then so one of your paragraphs says an important principle an important principle of youth work is the strength-based approach. Now everything in that paragraph needs to relate to that one sentence and nothing more, and then you move to the next paragraph and to the next paragraph. So that should spell out an essay structure for you. Lesson number 2. Have I met the APA guidelines? Now, Table Adelaide uses, in the social sciences department, the APA guideline. There's a link down here for you so that you can check that out. Make sure that you're up to date with the guidelines. Now, as a lecturer, I hate having to mark students down because they haven't followed simple referencing processes. Now, if you stuff up your referencing, meaning that you reference everything but you haven't put it the right way, you're not going to lose a lot of marks. But it can be the difference between a high distinction and a distinction. A high distinction says that you've handed up an assignment that is unbelievable. Now, if your referencing isn't up to standard, then the chances are your assignment is not unbelievable. And so you can't ever hit that upper echelon, I'm not sure that's the right word, but that upper standard of assignments quality that you're looking for in the academic context. So you're looking at things like, have I referenced every argument and every statement, and have I reached the required word count and not gone more than 10% over? So that's different in the APA guideline. So in Harvard you can go 10% under. In APA guideline you cannot go under the word count. So you must hit it and not go more than 10% over. If you don't believe me, click the link, follow it to the APA guideline, and you'll see that clearly written there. Lesson number 3. Alright, is my sentence, paragraph, essay saying something that I don't want it to? Have I stuck to the essay question? So that is saying things like, say it's on the topic that I've already mentioned, your essay, and you say, the principle and practice of relational youth work is the strength-based approach. Now, the issue with that sentence is, that's not the only principle and practice of relational youth work, that's just one. And it might even be just one that one author claims. You need to make sure that when you're talking about anything, say you're talking about the strategies or the practices behind crisis intervention, you don't say the processes in responding to crisis intervention are. You say, according to this author, they argue that a helpful process in responding to crisis intervention is. So when you're talking there, you're referencing the author, and then you're referring people to academics working in the field or practitioners working in the field. So make sure you're saying exactly what you mean when you're writing things out. Lesson number 4, does my essay make sense grammatically when I read it out loud? So I just put down a few examples below there. So have I used these words or phrases in the following manner? The first one, I think the most important framework in youth work is. Now, I think can be helpful in an assignment where you're asked to talk about what you think. But generally speaking, in an academic environment, you're asked to be able to demonstrate your ability to research evidence to respond to the essay question. What you think should be backed up by resources that you find. And so you don't ever need to say, I think that the best approach is. What you can say is, Martin thinks, or Robinson thinks, or Daughtry thinks, or Daughtry argues, or Robinson argues. What you think rarely matters in an assignment unless you're specifically asked to talk about what you think. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Things. There are a few things that are important to youth work. Now, in academic writing, there is no such thing as things. Things doesn't mean anything. There are practice approaches, there are responses, there's critical incidents, there's moments of learning, but there is not things. So I've written down there are several frameworks, approaches, or perspectives. So remember in your assignment, be clear and explicit. And the last one, you must know about various frameworks. When you write like that, you're actually turning your academic paper into a letter that you're writing to your lecturer. Now, the chances are that your lecturer gave you that information, so they already know. So the lecturer, you're telling the lecturer that they must know something. We don't use that language in the academic setting. We use language like youth work practitioners must know, or academics seeking to pursue information in helping professions must know. So we're looking for language that demonstrates a context, and saying you just means that you're now writing a letter to me. We don't use that in the academic world. All right, so that's lesson number 4. Just 2 more to go. Lesson number 5, how I developed an evidence-based argument or an anecdotal-based argument. So some assignments, like I was saying before, actually require you to give your opinion. And so you can say, I think that this is a really good idea, right? That is such a small amount of the assignments that you're required to write. So if you're required to write on the impact of youth workers engaging in practice with Indigenous people, in your assignment, do not include any anecdotal conversations you've had with Indigenous people as a part of growing up in life. Like, well, say you're in your introduction, you might write something like, when I was younger, I engaged in a community-based program with Indigenous young people, and I found that was really helpful for me to understand more about the world. In this assignment, I'm going to discuss evidence-based research for blah, blah, blah. The assignment is not asking you to talk about your motivation or your excitement or your passion for working in that sector. When you're studying at degree level, you're asked to go out and research and provide an evidence-based response to the essay question. So make sure you're sticking to that. Finally, lesson number 6. Does my introduction and thesis statement directly and only respond to the essay question? We'll do this real quick. I've just written out a fake essay question and then a fake response that's unhelpful. Discuss 4 models of youth work intervention and critique the positive and negative impacts of their implementation. 2,000 words. So the introduction does fit in that word count. First sentence, from an early age, I've been passionate about working with young people. Okay, that might sound fine, but it's actually irrelevant to the topic question. Second sentence, young people are often misrepresented and suffer from major power imbalances within the Australian socio-political environment. Consequently, there needs to be micro and macro advances made to offer support. For example, Indigenous young people often feel Okay, so now you're moving into providing an evidence-based argument for your thesis statement. You're still in your introduction, so you don't want to be doing that yet. All you want to be doing is to introduce the theme of your essay and then say what your essay is going to do. Introduction over. For example, Indigenous young people often feel victimised by the Anglo-Saxon education model that has resulted in their institutionalisation. No reference. Moreover, from an early age, I've noticed that some interventions don't work. This is your opinion, and actually can cause more harm than good, which isn't good enough. Isn't good enough to who? Then the next paragraph, 4 youth work interventions are important. Firstly, treatment. Secondly, reform. Thirdly, advocacy. And fourthly, empowerment. They each have benefits, costs, and room for improvement. According to Cooper and White, young people have problems because their basic rights are not adequately recognised. That quote has nothing to do with the sentence beforehand. And we know when we read essays, when you've just grabbed a quote that is remotely close to the topic at hand and then you've just put it after something you've said. So make sure in your introduction you are clear and explicit. Now, I hope that this has been helpful for you, and the purpose and the heart behind this resource is just to say we don't want people losing like silly grades or minuscule grades because they just haven't understood a couple of key factors. Strengthening your academic voice is helpful for life because it teaches you how to have an evidence-based argument when you're trying to argue or for your cause of your program, or you're trying to apply for funding, or you're writing grant proposals, or you're just in conversation with people about what does it mean to be a youth worker. So when someone asks you a question like, what do you do for work? And you say, oh, I'm a youth worker, and they say, what does that mean? And you say, oh, I hang out with young people. You actually want to give a more clear and succinct and evidence-based argument for saying why is it helpful to have an approach that supports and empowers young people. So please sit with this resource, understand this resource, and give us your feedback. And if there's anything else that could be more helpful, we'd love to be supportive. Thanks.